everyone. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to come and visit with everybody today.
And thank you for putting us two women on stage to talk to you about regenerative agriculture. Not often viewed as female-dominated. We happen to both be deeply involved in regenerative agriculture, so excited about that.
So to give you a little bit of background for me, I've been in this area for a very, very long time, true native Central Oregonian, and have a hard love for everything that we have here in our area. And I've had many years of opportunity of marketing to work in many different types of industries. But about 5 years ago, I stumbled across Oregon's Wild Harvest, which spoke so strongly to my heart. We are a almost 30-year strong herbal supplement manufacturer that started out in Sandy, Oregon, and moved over here to Central Oregon almost 8 years ago. And we were in search for additional land to be able to help grow material for our herbal supplements, and had no intention of moving the whole operation here, but just ended up, it just worked out that way. Found a beautiful property in Redmond where we can do manufacturing, and then purchased property up in Culver, not too far from where you're at, and grew a lot of good product there in combination with other fields that we still had in Sandy. And gosh, I think it's been now about 4 years ago, we had an opportunity to purchase the old Tom McCall Ranch just outside of Redmond, which is now a 600-acre operation for us. We don't utilize all of that. We grow probably 250 acres, I think, of herbs right now at the moment. And so regenerative agriculture clearly factors into what we do. Our whole goal and mission for our company is to be able to grow product and to help heal the people on the planet. So circling back around, I've been a 25 plus year homeopathic oriented, herbal oriented, self-care, Western medicines there I know, but I know myself as well. So I had an opportunity to jump in with Oregon's Wild Harvest. And it's an amazing opportunity. Entrepreneur-oriented, family-owned and operated, woman-owned and operated, and about 50% of our staff, when we moved from the valley over here, came along with us. So we've had that blessing of having strong operational staff in place for 20-some years.
What they do is extremely special. Like, just to emphasize that, we're so lucky to have this operation in Central Oregon. It's truly unique. My background, I wear a few different hats as far as this conversation goes. Casad Family Farms, we are family operated farm and ranch. We started in Bend as just a 3-acre market farm. At the time, it was called Juniper Jungle. We did 3 farmers markets a week, and we had a CSA, and we grew all the veggies. And that was really where we cut our teeth and learned how to farm. We got our first wholesale contract in 2015, growing potatoes for Deschutes Brewery. And that was really the impetus for our farm to be able to scale and learn how to do agriculture at scale. We moved the farm from Bend to Madras in order to access more farmland and be in an environment that was actually an easier growing climate. So we moved the farm to Madras. At the same time as the farm has scaled, we now manage about 360 acres of farmland. But the transition of that farm to Madras has been interesting because this region has been undergoing huge changes as far as like climate change and water allocations. So if you live in Bend, you know that water in this basin is an extremely interesting conversation. And so over the last 5 years, our farm has lost 80% of its irrigation waters in the last 5 years. And to make that hit home with a business person, that's like any business losing 80% of its operating capital. Like, how do you survive? So our model has changed a lot. We no longer can grow vegetables in that way while maintaining what is our center pillar, which is, well, first and foremost, grow nutritious food for the people. But it's also to make sure that we are regenerating the ecosystems that we manage in the process of growing that food. And we couldn't do that and continue to grow vegetables. So we've really transitioned our farm model to one in which it's a pasture-based regenerative grazing system. And so we've increased our cattle herd, and we practice holistic management with those cattle, and we rotate them around in a beneficial way. We now grow a lot of grains organically, and we raise a lot of hogs, feeding them all the grain diet that we raise organic, and just really diversifying, trying to bring in as much biological diversity as possible. For the sake of this conversation too, what I have learned about scaling regen ag is we can't do it without distribution. And distribution is where a lot of farmers see a lot of pain or can't access market opportunities. And so over the last few years, a small group of us decided to purchase our region's only local food distribution business. It's called Agricultural Connections. And we made that acquisition and we turned it into a farmer-owned cooperative. So Ag Connect is now your region's farmer co-op. And so in order to scale regen ag, we have to have distribution mechanisms that prioritize local foods, and we need market opportunities to create that pull-through for the product that the farmers are trying to grow, or partner with farmers. And we'll get more into that. So that is a little intro to a couple of the hats that I wear.
So, you mentioned, you were talking about regenerative agriculture. Does most everyone understand what regenerative agriculture is? Opportunity for us to be able to close loop, basically put the good things that we take out of the earth back into the earth. We actually are organic certified through Oregon Tilth, but we also have an additional certification, which is a biodynamic certification through Demeter. And it's in essence what Cate just described about what she's doing out at Casad Farms. We have to maintain about 10% of our land in set aside for riparian, water management, wildlife management, and so that we can fully cyclical everything back into the land. We run a herd of cattle, much like you do. All of our cattle is simply just for poo. That's just the best way to describe it.
The magic of poo.
The magic of poo, which allows us to be able to put that, creating fertilizer along with other herbs and things, to be able to put back into the soil and just regenerate things through. So our cattle, they all have names. They're all part of the farm. They're one of our favorites of our co-founder, Randy. He likes to hang out with the cattle. But the biodynamic is really important to us as well because it allows us to be good stewards of the gift of the land that we're given, so that we can make sure that we're ensuring it, that we're using it in the proper way and making it viable for our next generation. Our business, as I mentioned, is family owned and operated. We're now looking at the third generation within the family. So it's important for us to make sure that that land stays sustainable. The other aspect to that is we also close loop on our seeds. Majority of what we grow out on our farm are perennials to what we know to be perennials, but we harvest the whole plant because there's aspects to that plant that has constituents in its leaves and its stems and in its roots. And so that's a little bit different approach to what we do from a supplement manufacturing perspective to what our competitors do. So we make sure that we grow a percentage of crop that we allow to go to seed so that we can harvest those seeds and hold them and reuse them again for the following year. With our Demeter certification, we kind of laugh internally because we refer to it as the woo-woo part of our business. Biodynamic is tied directly to our moon cycles, and there's some specific steps that you take to prepare the soil, to prepare fertilizer, mind you, natural fertilizer, nothing chemical, nothing, because we couldn't have our certifications if we had those things. But we do create fertilizer that we use across the farm, not only on our crops, but for other things for personal use. So those certifications for us are really, really important because having that closed loop system of where we grow it all the way through seed and harvest and manufacture it, we can maintain total control over the quality of our product through that whole process. So I know having some of the conversation earlier with what you deal with manufacturing and how you deal with things operationally and how you deal with things for certifications, been there, done that, backed up, had to redo it, lots and lots of things. So we've had that luxury as well as stamina in going through those processes of challenges of operation and what that means for scale up and what that means for market. And so it's having these resources for us, the farm, it's huge because it literally, thematically, as well as hands-on, I guess would be the best way to describe it. You can get that sense of feeling of our product when you pick it up off the shelf. You know that every aspect of that, what it takes to get that product on the shelf, is touched somewhere, an aspect of what we've done for growing. So
I want to touch on something. So the seed saving, we do the same thing. And we harvest seeds and then carry it over year to year. And in addition to just the quality of the product you're creating, I want to do this from like a business, secure your supply chain perspective. When you do that, you're harvesting and you're saving and you're replanting and you're cultivating a seed that is climate adapted. That's significant for the future of humans on Earth because, for example, in 2021, we had a summer in which in early June, it was like 116 degrees for like many days. It was insane. Like that is a shock to a plant system. And if you harvested and saved seeds from that season, what you saved was you saved the resilience and the plant genetics that are going to make it in a climate like that. And unfortunately, we're going to see a lot more of those trends. So we better be seeing a seed stock and a way of cultivating a future of agriculture that's going to be ready for those climatic extremes. So if you want, a secure supply chain of your foods for your products, that matters. It's not just feel good stuff. This is like good business. So, yeah.
And being able to share that information with who you'd like to partner. I think one thing for us that's really critical is we try to grow absolutely everything we can, but clearly we can't because of where we're at logistically as well as climate-wise. We have long-standing relationships with suppliers that we've developed over many years that we trust to bring material to us that would be of the same quality that we expect of ourselves so that we can deliver our product at the same level that we want to for our customers. So it's kind of an extension of having as much control as you can in-house, but also having the confidence in the suppliers that you're utilizing. And trust me, the last 3 years have been a really big challenge for both a climate perspective as just well as a supply chain perspective. Things that we never had challenges before in terms of getting material, we have now had to rethink, what does that mean? Do we just do short runs? Do we do longer runs? What does that do for us in terms of distribution? Out of stocks is not a fun place to be. I'm just going to say that up front. It's a challenge, but it's also something that is helpful because it keeps you forward thinking about what you want to plan to do for moving forward and how you're wanting to grow your business. We have opportunity to be able to sell into retail and e-commerce through our own website and through Amazon. So we've got some ebb and flow flexibility there. But at the end of the day, we really do count on this type of weather to help sustain what we harvest now. We're in the last literal week of harvest at the farm to be able to hold material to process to run for product this next year until we get back into the growing season.
Buy her a drink.
It's harvest time. Yep, all hands on deck.
Well, you just brought up something. You just introduced partnerships. So maybe we can talk a little bit about, we're here in a room full of creatives, of business builders, of CPG brands. And I want to tell you guys, honestly, my belief is that the CPG sector is the linchpin to see a scalable, resilient future for regenerative ag. Like, do not wait on the government, right? Like,
Exactly.
no, we need the CPG sector. Honestly, I feel like has the most potential and power to help us scale regenerative ag. So I'm really excited to be here and talk to you guys about how we might engage and how we might partner to scale more options like this. Would you like to start?
Well, we can a little bit. I want to mention too, as partnerships where you're talking about that, how important it is to be able to reach out to others, even if they're competitors, because everybody has the same challenges and we can all have that opportunity to learn from each other. We have, in addition to our certifications, we belong to American Herbal, APA. So a lot of industry-oriented things that have resources for us as well. but we're constantly looking to see what other options there are out there for us as a company, regardless of size. And we were fortunate enough earlier this year to be recipient of a grant through Oregon Business that will allow us to expand some of our operational outside work that we need to do within the farm, as well as being able to bring those things, additional equipment and things inside the facility from a manufacturing standpoint. So, even though we've been doing this for almost 30 years, we're by no means large in scale as what you would think of somebody like a Gaia Herb or in that example. So we're still challenged with a lot of the things that you all are challenged with. So it's important for us from a partnership standpoint to really find the resources and the tools that we can in our own peer group, within our own competitive set, as well as what's available to us out in the marketplace.
Yeah, industrial ag and that model, which has become quite the extractive model, it has really benefited from a very siloed approach to these industries. And I think that the future of being able to scale this stuff is going to be breaking those silos down and really doing a lot of cross-industry collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think having a vertical relationship, taking a look at what your business is currently doing, what you've got for your model, and a couple of others have already touched on this, find your strengths. Don't look at things as being weaknesses, look at them as being challenges. Find individuals or an entity that can help you with the other part that is I don't know quite how to do it. I don't have the experience. This is a big time suck for me. Be able to find those vertical partners, but aligning yourself in a way that it matches with what your goals and what your mission is for your business, so that you're finding a like to like where it makes sense. Again, it's interesting, but whatever you do in terms of that manufacturing that product, when you touch it, I've said this before, you can literally feel the love. We say this at work, but you can feel the love and the hard work and energy and effort that goes into manufacturing that product to the end result, to the consumer. So those relationships are hugely important.
From a smaller, mid-sized farms perspective, there's nothing we love more than really solid contracts. And it's really hard, actually, to get those very solid contracts with a business that is in it for the long haul with you. And, these regenerative practices, this is years and years and years of investment into soil to create an environment that's going to give you the most nutrient-dense end product that you could possibly have. And what I'm hearing a lot at food and agriculture conferences is that the next kind of stage or thing in food is going to be nutrient density. And there's a lot of people working on this right now. And so again, forward thinking about how you're going to set yourself apart in the marketplace, nutrient density, that is coming. And that will be a reflection of the soils you have, and then thus the partnerships with farms that you have that have good soil. So it's worth the investment. But I think more than anything, I would just love to see this sector create more long-term regenerative business relationships. So while the farming and the agriculture industry is really thinking more holistically to create regenerative outcomes on land, how are we as business builders thinking about building regenerative business outcomes? We've, been in an era of talking a lot about triple bottom line business. I think what that paradigm of business thought is missing is ecological context. It's one thing that I see missing in that thinking about how to do business. And I think if you're a CPG brand in Oregon, maybe, ask yourself before you set out to build a product, like maybe you do some research and you find out, what are markets and crops in this region that have an ecological context that makes sense to build a product around? Or if you're, manufacturing somewhere else, like maybe getting a little bit of ecological context about that region, as we think about needing to create more climate smart commodity crops, what are the climate smart commodity products we're going to build with a millet, that's going to be climate resilient, or just other types of crops that maybe we aren't really focused on yet, but we need to start focusing on so that these agricultural regions that are losing water have a market to sell into. Our area, Jefferson County, we used to produce 60% of the world's carrot seeds. So if you've eaten a carrot, there's 60% chance that seed came from Madras, Jefferson County, Madras, Oregon. That market is quickly leaving those farmlands because we don't have the waters to service that market anymore. So I see this massive opportunity in Central Oregon to think creatively about how might I build a product that would create the pull-through that would actually create a whole new market for the farmers of that region to start servicing. And that's a sort of like mindset I'm really excited to start seeing. It's a more holistic mindset. And we go through holistic management training as land managers, but how do business builders and organizations and investors go through the same kind of a holistic management mindset training?
We respectively plant cover crops. You can't always continue to farm the same land over and over and over again because you'll pull nutrients from it. So there's cover crops such as peas and oats and things that you'll plant that will put the missing nutrients back in the soil. So you'll have that crop rotation is critical in terms of moving things through. And you'll notice this, I think you were talking about with your nut butter and the quality of the suppliers and where they're coming from and what your expectations are. I think that goes back to, Kate, what you were saying as well, is making sure that what you're getting is coming from an area that's conducive. So we plant these cover crops to maintain the soil, most importantly, so the soil doesn't fallow or blow away. And that's the biggest challenge that she's having up in her area right now, just because of lack of water. You've got to put something in the ground to keep the ground from blowing away, because when the top layer of that soil goes, then you really do lose the benefit of being able to farm that land.
I was at an investment conference in Denver 2 weeks ago, and Ty, who runs the Spokane Conservation District in the Palouse area of Washington, big grain growing region, he told me this and it blew my mind, but every season in the Palouse, they're losing about 8 tons of soil per acre per year. And then he made the analogy of if a ton is about a dime, so it's 8 dimes worth of soil is leaving our earth per season because of the farming practices. And I can't say it strongly enough. The soil is our commonwealth. And so to understand that is happening at that scale, it is all hands on deck to try and change our systems of agriculture to keep soil in place and keep farmers in a position where they can actually implement conservation projects. If the markets are squeezing the producers so intensely to where they don't have any margin to think beyond survival or bankruptcy, there's no room for creativity and there's no room for conservation projects. So as we think about how we're going to source our ingredients, I know we're all always thinking about COGS, and we got to. At the same time, we're probably going to have to pay a price premium for a while for products that come from regen sourcing, and that is the right thing to do. And we need to lean into the market claims as far as nutrient density and the regen certifications and the Demeter certifications are going to matter to get us a price premium on the end. But again, we have to think that way about how we're sourcing our raw ingredients.
Exactly. Yep. Well said. Well said.
Somebody asked me the question about the price premiums at that Denver conference, and the question annoyed me so much. I stayed up all night the night before my panel, just fuming about all my list of answers about why we deserve a premium. And I was like, wait, this is the wrong approach, Kate. And so when I spoke to them, I'll just in a Cliff Notes way say what I said to them, which I was like, okay, let's just take 30 seconds and let's imagine a future. It's 20 years from now, and Central Oregon has healthy, functional soils, and the water runs clear, and our children are healthy, and our people are healthy, our communities are healthy. What are you willing to pay for that future? Because that's really what's at stake. So I don't want it to sound too preachy, but I just know that the people in this room are the creative minds who are going to build the markets and the businesses that are going to be able to do that with us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can I ask you, what are you feeling the most excited about for the future of your business and the future of regenerative agriculture?
I think it's just the awareness, the educational awareness, having opportunity for people in this room, you in particular, being able to participate in situations of where you can learn about it, you can practice it, And that's probably the biggest thing, is that we all have that ability to practice this even in our own backyards. And we've got land that our home lives on, and whatever that looks like, we've got choices that we can make about how we want to manage that. So I think those things are important. And to think outside the box, think beyond just today or just this week, but what does that mean for my family moving forward and for their family moving forward? That is where we always take our step first with what we do, is what does this mean to the person's health? What does this mean to their vitality, the viability of what we're producing and giving to them for the land, to be able to leave a legacy behind? So it's important for us to be able to do that as well. Okay. So we have about 4 minutes left. Do you want to take some questions, Kate? Okay.
Thank you. This is awesome. Shelley and I think you should actually represent us maybe federally and help us change farm subsidies to regenerative. Don't you all think?
Yeah, they're working on it.
That's great. And everyone should probably see Common Ground if you haven't yet. I highly recommend it. Yep. Really great film documentary about regenerative and the movement. So we make a product that uses regenerative ingredients. We're not regenerative certified yet, but there's a bit of a confusion around regenerative on the consumer level and what it means. And I was wondering, how are you communicating that to consumers in a simple way that they can make sense? Like I do demos and it's a long conversation. I want to make it simple. You have like 10 seconds with a consumer. So we'd love to hear about that. Thanks.
It's a little different every time I do it. And then I'm like, oh, that one was better. Oh, that was bad. If I were to just right now, I would say regenerative farming is a system of management that creates a net positive ecological outcome on the lands that you are managing. And that leaves a big, wide girth of practices that can be implemented, indigenous knowledge that would be applied, and it's outcomes based. I guess that's what I believe, and this will probably be a debate in the industry for a while. Is it practice based or is it outcomes based? We do ecological outcome verification monitoring, which was developed by the Savory Institute, because we believe that the outcomes are what we need to be paying attention to. You can implement all of the best intentions and still be doing terrible things. I mean, unfortunately, organic can pillage the soil, right? It's not perfect. It's better than dumping a bunch of chemicals, but it still may not be regenerating that system. So that's my broad statement in 10 seconds.
Yeah, and I think it's important too not to allow it to become a buzzword. For a long time, organic, what did that actually mean? And now you see organic on everything. You see non-GMO on everything, and you would see it and you just accept it. But regenerative, there's a whole big platitude as to how you want to go about talking about that and approaching it from many different levels. So I think it's really critical not to allow it in particular to become another buzzword.
Which it is. I mean, the Cargills are using it and the Tysons are using it, and we'll have to have certifications to protect against it. Mm-hmm. And there are Farm Bill things that are coming up in this next session that are going to matter a lot, right? Do we keep subsidizing the certain kind of agriculture we'll have? I don't have super high hopes that we're going to see big change, but I really, really hope we do. We have some incredible people at the head of the Farm Service Agency right now, Zachary Deschanel, and he is doing everything he can to really change that paradigm of subsidies and crop loss insurance and all this stuff that keeps ag the way it's been. So vote. Yeah.
So, Kate, one of your titles up here is missing, and that's Range Revolution. Range Revolution, I'd like you to just talk a little bit about, because as a consumer, I just find it insanely inspiring. And the fact that you know what's going on a farm, and now you're creating this product. So I know there's a lot to it, but if you can spend a little bit of time talking about it.
Thank you. Yeah, so Range Revolution, I started because I'm insane. In 2021, I wanted to build a product for Havstad Hat Company, which has been my entrepreneurial baby for 10 years. And I was like, great, I'll go find leathers that come from, my peers, this ecosystem, the same way I source all the food in my life, regenerative. That was really naive. And I found out immediately that all of the hides that come from all of the family ranches, the regenerative ranches that I know, are all being thrown into the trash. Every year in America, 5 million cattle hides are thrown into the trash. It's not free to dispose of them. It's an incurred cost to the processor, which is then passed on to the rancher. And also these just sit in a landfill and off-gas methane. Terrible problem. At the same time, when I was like, okay, well, where are the leathers coming from that make up commodity fashion products? Most of them, if you can find anything that is traceable, it's a very opaque supply chain. Many of them can be traced back to places like Brazil, in which they are perpetuating deforestation. So 2 adjunct problems, and I was like, this is solvable. So I started working with a network of people to start aggregating hides from regenerative ranches, getting them to a tannery to do vegetable tanning in the United States, and then creating the highest margin product possible from a strategic standpoint, which would have been handbags for the fashion sector. So Range Revolution is launching in November. We've been building out our collection. We've been learning like all of the bumpy things about trying to rebuild systems of aggregation for ag of the middle, and building what is going to be really a paradigm-changing level of traceability in the leather industry that the fashion industry is being very much held accounted to. There's now legislation which is actually going to be forcing companies to prove traceability when it comes to things that come from certain supply chains like coffee, leather, meat, etc. So Range, I started it because I want to see regenerative farmers and ranchers get more profitable. And that's a big nut to crack right now. It's really hard. And as a producer myself, you just know in this very slim margin business of producing whole foods, you have to make sure that you're not losing any margin to things like lost opportunities. Like we need to utilize bones, we need to utilize fat, and we need to utilize hides. This is whole carcass utilization. And so I was like, great, like let's start increasing the margins for those regen ranchers by bringing these products back in to their, profit and loss. So that is Range Revolution. This is one of our bags. Hey. It's been a long journey. I'm learning a lot about manufacturing. We now have a 20 style collection for men and women that's going to be launching. It's just, this is the type of business that was built as a response to something that I think will benefit the regenerative farming and ranching community. So how does that thought process drive the companies we build and the products we build?
Please join me in thanking Cate Havstad-Casad, Casad Family Farms, and the Havstad Hat Company, and Wendy Brinkley, Oregon's Wild Harvest. Thank you both so much. Thank you.